In the shadow of medieval Umbria's rugged hills, a wolf prowled the outskirts of Gubbio. Night after night it struck, first devouring livestock, then turning on men and women who strayed beyond the safety of the walls. Swords and spears had failed. Hunters returned empty-handed, or not at all. Could a humble friar, unarmed and alone, face this beast and broker peace where force had brought only fear? By the early 13th century, Francis of Assisi had already begun his wandering ministry. Born to a wealthy family in Assisi, he had renounced comfort and inheritance for a life of poverty and brotherhood with all creation. He was known for preaching to birds and for his gentleness toward animals, seeing in every living thing a reflection of its creator. Stories of his compassion and strange authority over creatures travelled quickly through the valleys and hill towns of Umbria. When terror gripped Gubbio, word reached Francis there. The people lived in dread. This wolf, huge, gaunt with hunger, its eyes said to burn in the dark, emerged from its lair beyond the city walls. It slaughtered sheep by the flock, then attacked those who ventured out for wood, water, or work in the fields. Armed bands patrolled the roads, yet the beast slipped past them, dragging victims into the underbrush. At dusk, homes stood shuttered, children huddled indoors. Fear pressed on the town like a siege. Messengers came to Francis, begging his aid. They told him the wolf spared no one, that to go out unarmed was to court certain death. Friends and followers warned him to turn back, to leave this to soldiers and hunters. But Francis, staff in hand, made the sign of the cross and set out towards the hills. A small band of townspeople and friars trailed at a distance, their courage wavering as they neared the wolf's reputed lair. The path grew quiet and tense. The air seemed to thicken with menace as they approached the edge of the woods. Then, without warning, the wolf burst from the brush. Jaws gaping, it charged straight for Francis, a blur of teeth and matted fur. The onlookers froze, certain they were about to see him torn apart. Francis did not run. He stood his ground, raised his hand, and traced the sign of the cross between himself and the onrushing animal. In a clear voice he commanded in Christ's name that the wolf come to him and harm no one, neither him nor any soul. To the astonishment of those watching, the wolf halted mid-charge. Its snarl faded. It closed its jaws, lowered its head, and stepped forward more slowly. The beast came close, and then, like a dog before its master, lay down at the friar's feet. Francis reached out and placed his hands on its head, stroking the rough fur without a hint of fear. Addressing it as Brother Wolf, he spoke of the terror it had caused, of the men and women it had killed. On God's behalf, he offered forgiveness, but he named its deeds plainly. Then he asked the question at the heart of the matter: why this savagery? Hunger, he said, had driven it. If the wolf could trust, there would be another way. Francis proposed a pact. He promised that the people of Gubbio would feed the wolf daily, giving it enough from their tables so that it would never again be forced to hunt their flocks or attack travelers. In return, the wolf must swear to harm no one, no person, no animal in those lands. The witnesses watched in silence as Francis held out his hand. He told the wolf to give a sign if it accepted the agreement. The animal gazed up at him, ears pricked, as if listening. Then, in a gesture that stunned all present, it lifted its right forepaw and placed it in Francis's outstretched hand. The friar took the paw gently, as one might clasp the hand of a penitent, making a solemn promise. Francis declared himself surety for this vow. He pledged that the townspeople would keep their side of the bargain and asked the wolf if it would keep its own. Again, the paw rose, as though in assent. Then Francis ordered the wolf to follow him. Side by side, man and beast turned back toward Gubbio. News of their approach raced ahead. By the time they reached the gates, crowds had poured into the piazza, murmuring in disbelief. When Francis appeared with the wolf at his heel, calm, obedient, its head bowed, the throng gasped. Many climbed onto steps and ledges for a better view, straining to see if this was truly the same creature that had haunted their fields. Francis mounted a set of steps and addressed the people. He presented the wolf as the very enemy who had tormented them, now come as a brother seeking peace. He told them of the pact, that the wolf had promised to lay aside violence, and that they, in turn, must promise to feed it so that hunger would no longer drive it to bloodshed. The crowd, moved by fear, wonder, and relief, agreed. Voices rose together, pledging food from every door. Turning to the wolf, Francis repeated the terms aloud, as if sealing the covenant before all. The animal bowed its head once more. Then Francis released it, telling it to go in peace and keep faith. The wolf slipped into the streets of Gubbio, not as a lurking terror, but as a creature now bound to the town by promise. From that day, the story says, the wolf changed its ways. No longer a marauder, it padded through Gubbio at dusk, quiet and unthreatening. House by house it went, pausing at thresholds. People emerged with bread, scraps and bones. Doors opened instead of slamming shut. Even the dogs, sensing something altered, held their bark. The wolf became a familiar presence. It wandered the lanes and outskirts, and the people came to see it less as a monster and more as a strange guardian. Children grew bold enough to approach it. It did not snap or snarl. Its ribs no longer showed. Its coat grew thick and healthy. Where once its appearance had meant death, now it was a sign of the town's curious peace. So the months passed, then years. Gubbio lived with its former enemy in an uneasy harmony that slowly became simple habit. The wolf grew old. Its gait slowed. Its muzzle greyed. At last, it lay down and died. When news of its death spread, the town mourned. Bells tolled, not for a human soul, but for the beast that had once terrorized them and had ended its days as their companion. They buried the wolf with a measure of honor, remembering both the fear it had inspired and the peace that had followed its meeting with Francis. For many, the animal story became a living sign of what they believed God had done through the friar, turning violence into concord, not by killing the threat, but by binding it with mercy and mutual obligation. The tale of the Wolf of Gubbio spread far beyond the town's walls. Preachers used it to stir hearts, pointing to a power that could tame not only wild beasts, but also human cruelty. Pilgrims came to see the place where Francis had spoken to the wolf and where the town had kept its promise. In Gubbio, the memory of that covenant lingered long after the animal's bones had turned to dust. Today in the piazza, a statue recalls that moment. Francis with his hand extended, the wolf's paw resting in his palm. Whether heard as legend, miracle, or moral tale, the story poses the same question. If even a killer can be bound to peace, what might mercy accomplish among people? In the figure of Francis and his brother Wolf, the town of Gubbio found an enduring symbol of reconciliation, an image of a world in which, for a time, compassion did what blades could not.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. Make sure to leave a comment with who you want covered next.